The SEC said what? Well, we don't know yet. We'll find out later this week or next week what the SEC is going to say, but I believe Bitcoin is still going to continue downward. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name's Neil, keeping technical analysis short and sweet. I have a feeling that we're going to see another drop down towards this 200 EMA before ultimately pushing back up towards the 108, getting some consolidation and pushing upwards. I already recorded this video once and it did not take, so this may not be as informative, but I'll try to do my best. CTSI, we need to be hitting this downward trend line most likely, as we are getting some strong resistance at this 200 EMA. But if we do push up over that 200 EMA and hold, we could start to see CTSI take off. If you haven't entered into this, just keep an eye on it, as volume has picked up more than ever right in this area, and getting over that 200 EMA is all we really need to start seeing that push upward. We already crossed the downward trend line, so the push up should be very easy. Spell, still similar thing, consolidation, need to get over the 200 EMA, but we're just kind of waiting for that to start pushing up, break the 200 EMA and the downward trend line at the same time. IOTX, consolidation, broke over this upward trend line, but even with Bitcoin pulling back, it has not retraced a whole bunch. It's holding support on the 618 Fibonacci retracement. The next step down would be down here at about 2.5 cents, and if that does not hold, the next stop down here at 2.2. However, there is the possibility of it doing a flash crash and then just coming right back up. Anywhere within this area, you're starting to look at an entry, but ideally over this 200 EMA. When we can close over that 200 EMA, the next thing to be looking at is 0.033, and if we can get above 0.033, there's not a whole bunch of resistance in between here and about 5.5 cents. So keep IOTX on your list. And as I recommend always Tornado Cash, you can trade it on MEXC. There's a reference link in the description below. If you haven't gotten into Tornado Cash, we got in at 750 and we have been nothing but up over these past months, about 80% increase in price. And if you are going to be using MEXC, use a VPN and you can trade Tornado Cash. You get 10 USDT if you use that reference link, which you can just buy almost one full Tornado Cash. If you would have taken my advice back here, you would have more than 1.5 Tornado Cash just from using that reference link. But now we are breaking above this previous high. We broke this downward trend line. We held support on the 200 EMA. Volume is picking up. RSI is trying to stay healthy by having a little bit of consolidation, but it's not having a major retracement, which is what you would see if it was going to start the continuation downwards. As long as we are holding above this previous high, we are looking more and more bullish for Tornado Cash. That is why I have been recommending it since we had our first entry in my signal channel at 756, more or less, right around here. So it's been up very nicely. It's been a long, slow play, but you're not worried about any potential loss as it's getting more and more support, keeping that 200 EMA closer before ultimately pushing it up towards $32 and its all-time high of $459. Enough of Tornado. If you haven't entered yet, I highly recommend it, but it's not financial advice. Doge is holding above 21 cents. As expected, very strong support off the 200 EMA as well. This is looking more and more bullish. Even with Bitcoin's pullbacks, it's still staying very healthy. We can only expect further upside for Dogecoin. And the ultimate where we really need to break is this 25 cents. If we can get over that, we can expect very little resistance in between there and 29 cents and then end beyond to 48 cents. They say Dogecoin can hit $4. So 21 cents to $4 is not a bad risk to reward, showing all the support that it does on Dogecoin. Aerodrome trying to pick up. It touched underneath that trend line as expected, touching the bottom of the CM Guppy, but is getting some support within that area, pushing it back in within this downward wedge, which is more of a bullish pattern, and we could expect this to start pushing upwards. The line is drawn like this. You could always readjust this line, something like that. So it came down and touched the trend line and found it as support, trading within this range. And if we get above this downward trend line, the 200 EMA is very close, sneaking up behind, and will push Aerodrome to a new high. So if you missed the entry in that 80% pump on Aerodrome, it is now reduced about 40%, giving you the option to get back in before it takes off. Compound is not looking the best as we expected for these past couple months, but it is holding support on this black upward trend line, and the volume is decreasing, but the price is kind of stabilizing. If we flip this over on an inverted scale, we would more likely look at that as a bearish pattern. Obviously bullish since the chart is inverted, but since we have lower highs, this could be the push that pushes it up over the 200 EMA and beyond. And flipping back over to the normal pattern, that's all we really need to do is get above that 200 EMA, and then there's not a whole bunch of resistance in between there and $1,000. Obviously we have some resistance here at 140, maybe 174. Beyond that, 240, 400, beyond 400, 540, beyond 540, all the way up here at $900. So if you have not entered compound at this very low price point, it's highly recommended, but it's not financial advice in any way whatsoever. Just take a look at that volume and how we are getting some major support from the bottom side right here to push it up over that 200 EMA. Looking at QNT, I was definitely more thorough in the previous video, but an overview on this video, 200 EMA is very strong support. Same with the 0.5 on the Fibonacci. As we see with Bitcoin pulling back, it's not really pushing down very hard. Could we see it retrace to $89? Yes, but for a very short time, we're most likely going to get support within that area. If we do push down that far and a bunch of buyers waiting to buy up at a cheap price like the people who did back here in the 22nd of June. So it is potential that it can retrace, but it'll retrace back up towards this upward trend line over the 200 EMA, maintain it as support most likely, and start that continuation upward that has been long awaited since back here when we were buying at $100 and even $75. Very healthy chart. Just need to get some more support from the 200 EMA. RSI looks healthy. A little bit of volume will go a long way, and we can start seeing some more bullish momentum when Bitcoin starts its reversal back upwards. BNT, if you did not enter in the trading signal at 36 cents all the way down here, we are currently up with no fear, even with this pullback in this downward channel. We are getting a lot of support on this bottom trend line. We are most likely going to push up towards this upward trend line, but if Bitcoin drops, we could see that pull back out of that the trend and pull back right back into the trend line with Bitcoin doing its correction from an oversold point of view. So BNT, keep an eye on this one. The 200 EMA is creeping up, about to snap this thing up above 80 cents. We are just waiting for a little bit more consolidation and potential pullback for BNT. Now everybody's favorite, XCN in the data analytics. I see everybody somehow finds XCN and goes straight to this part of the video. So like and subscribe if you have not. But XCN, as I've stated, we are most likely going to have a bunch of liquidity down within this range, within these two orange bars. Is there the possibility of ripping all the way down to 0.003? I say yes, just because in the past, it's not shown on this chart, but there was one candle that whipped all the way down to the absolute low before pulling way back up to where it was originally around 4 cents. That is a possibility to see a massive shakeout. So if you have a sell stop anywhere down here, it's just going to liquefy it, and you will be bought out, and we are going to see immediate reversal. I don't think we're going to see the possibility of getting back down to 0.002 or 0.0023 roughly. But the liquidity is built up right here. So like I was saying, we see that retracement coming back into the fair value gap, grabbing a bunch of liquidity, maybe even a little bit further before pulling back up and starting that upward trend towards this downward red trend line, which ultimately we need to break this line to start seeing some major movement. We could see major movement from this area all the way up to this downward trend line, but most likely expect a little bit of resistance in this area before breaking it and coming down and testing it as support, building that upward trend line before ultimately taking off towards the all-time high of 18 cents. XYO, this one is similar to Tornado Cash, long consolidated period, but when it breaks a downward trend line, this black downward trend line, we're going to see some major bullish movement, if not immediately, as this thing has a tendency to spike and then have that consolidation. We could see a spike up towards this 0.017, consolidation before another spike, finishing out the cup and handle, and XYO taking off. You have the opportunity to buy it underneath a cent, and it's giving you a bunch of time to do so. It is a lot of pressure within this area, a little bit of volume, as we've seen in the past. Down here, a little volume, push this thing way up from 0.005 all the way to 0.011. Major increase in price before ultimately taking off. We are expecting the similar formation with XYO, breaking this downward trend line, and this 200 EMA will ignite XYO. However, it's got a lot of strong support on the upward trend line. I don't think we are going to be pushing much lower. There is the possibility to 0.0079, but highly unlikely. I think it's just building pressure, consolidating. We are getting more volume to start pushing this up and out of that downward trend. Lastly, DNT and GRT, similar to XYO, long consolidation period, really irritated with the 200 EMA, just trying to bust over it. And then once it holds and closes above 0.03, the next resistance is 0.04, but beyond that, 0.05, and then a very, very high price prediction for DNT. It's given you a lot of opportunity. It's broken the downward trend line. It's consolidated, and it's given you the opportunity to enter at this price. If you have not entered yet, now is not a bad choice, but it's not financial advice. Good luck. Have fun with it, and I will see you on the next one.